The Own Your Intuitive podcast is for the creatives, spiritual entrepreneurs, and light workers in the world. The shining ones who have been told to dim their light and stop believing in magic. I say screw that. The time to rise is now. To bring your gifts out into the world in a big way, creating a business that feeds your soul and your bank account. You are a magical being with the potential to change the world, one human at a time. The time for you to own your intuitive is now. Hey everybody, I am so excited to be back in the Own Your Intuitive podcast. I apologize deeply for disappearing. It has literally been about 2 months since I recorded the last episode in December of 2019. And I think I disappeared without knowing what was really going to be happening, whether I would continue on in the podcast world or not. And so I want to say as I come back that December 2019 was a big energetic month. There was a lot going on astrologically, there was a lot going on energetically, and there was a big question at the end of 2019 for all of us, about what it was that we wanted to do in 2020. What was our big goals? What would we want to step into, to define ourselves as, to create? And in my world, I questioned whether the podcast was part of it. In January 21st of 2020, I went to India. I went to India for 3 weeks, and it was beyond anything I had ever experienced. But coming out of a difficult December, I was left with one big question. When I was going to India, I was like, the question that I want, the intention, when we set an intention, when intention setting is so imperative whenever we're doing anything. And I wanted to set a very strong intention when I went to India of really tapping into hearing my guides, to hearing God, to hearing angels, to getting the support that way through that channel, that I felt the noise by the end of 2019 had dimmed for me. So this is the only place I'm sharing this story, you guys. And so I'm excited to be back and to have this container to share these parts of being intuitive that I don't always get to share with the rest of the world. And so as I left for India, I knew that I was going to be going on a spiritual pilgrimage. I knew that setting a strong intention was going to offer a invitation to expand for more experience, more hearing spiritual sight. And in truth, even the trip to India, I tried to get out of. I paid the deposit, I was all in. And then when it came time to go all in, I was like, I can't do it. I'm going to find every reason. I'm going to be really convincing, because I knew that there was a big transformation you're just waiting in India. And it happened. And so I'm sharing with you guys today, something big that is occurring in my energetic world, in my intuitive world, and something I want to expand into. So as the Own Your Intuitive podcast comes back into play, I'm holding off on the interviews for a short period of time as I set the tone and set the base for this new version of the Own Your Intuitive, where we will be talking about our spiritual gifts and how we utilize them in a way to impact the world through service, through community, through, having a unique superpower that maybe not everybody is accessing, even though they have the capacity to. And so one of the big things for me in India was really getting closer to God than I have been ever. I've kind of, come out of the God closet more than once, but really not connected fully and softened the relationship quite dramatically by using words. And this is my own personal opinion and story. And by all means comment, because I would love to engage in conversation with everyone about everything to do with this. But I was afraid of the word God. I was afraid of God as a being, as an entity, as a connecting point for me. It just felt so far away, God, And so I would soften it for myself. I would say the universe, and I would say source, and I would say creator, and it felt safe and it felt comfortable. And then I went to India. And one of the greatest parts about being in India is that devotion is easily attainable. And, Krishna is one of the most accessible gods that I've ever come in contact with. In terms of the story of Krishna being born to human parents and having a brother and having friends and having girlfriends and all these kinds of things. And even though in my world, it felt like, they put a charm on everybody who was in Vrindavan where Krishna was born so that they wouldn't see him as a god and have an askewed view of, how they loved him. They just knew that they loved him very, very, very much. And through this relationship with Krishna, I realized how powerful it was for the Hindu religion to create a god that was like relatable. Like, I freaking fell in love with Krishna because Krishna was real. Like, he had parents and could be loved like a son and had friends and could, cause mischief with his friends and, was a lover. So sex was beautiful and celebrated. And it really brought me to a place of realizing how close God was to me, how distant I had kept him from me. And what was really powerful is this secret story I'm about to tell was I've realized that I'm not a monotheist. I'm a polytheist, meaning I'm in conversation with multiple gods. Like, I speak to God. And not just our one God that we, feel towards ourselves, but all gods as different, almost like, how do I say it, reflections of the one God. So Krishna was like a reflection. And as I was journaling at the end of India, I was journaling and the goddess Maeve was standing beside me. And, just really imparting that there's an up level to be had within myself and in my business and how I serve that is a form of royalty. Like, it felt very regal. And I mean, that's a powerful thing for me to receive from Goddess Maeve because she was really the goddess who would date the to-be kings. She would date them and she would wed them and then they would rise to kingship. And also kind of cool because in June, I'm hosting my very first live event called Rebel Unicorns Live. And one of the most powerful parts of this event that was non-negotiable was that I wanted to have an enchanted ball where we dress up as the most magical version of ourselves and come in as if you wanted to come in as an elfin king or queen or a fairy king or queen or however that persona or personification of you wanted to come in, that would be a place to come fully in your regal and royal attire. But what was really cool as May was chit-chatting with me as I was journaling is when I walked out that day with my group that I was in pilgrimage with, the general consensus or comment coming back to me, the reflection was, wow, Tamara, you almost like feel like royalty today. And I was like, well, that's funny. You should say that because that was the message that I got. And another really cool thing that occurred was the Green Man. The Green Man started to be like my spiritual guide when I was in India and has considerably shown up since I've come back to Canada as a consensus, as just a new guide for me. And looking into why would the Green Man appear to me in this way? And for myself, what I've reflected in and what I've known is that the Green Man represents a continuum through all religions. So you can go into a Catholic church and there are icons of the Green Man, engraved in some of the cathedrals dating back well in, hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And in all different sorts of religions, the Green Man appears kind of like a connector between all. He's like the ability, he's like a wood and forest entity that allows us to connect to nature. And I think that is almost like a grounding foundational piece for all religions is nature and Mama Earth and, supporting her. And as this new level of business that I'm working with, which are the elite spiritually gifted rebel unicorns here to change the vibration of Mama Earth, know what I'm saying? Having the Green Man come along and kind of present himself as being that anchor for the vision, the mission, what the representation of what the work I do moving forward is all about. I thought that was really profound. Now, I haven't shared this new communication with, higher dimensional beings with anyone. You guys are the first. And I'm excited about what this means. I'm excited to share with you how they show up, who shows up, what communication comes through. It's a big deal for me. It's a big deal to ask the intention to have a closer relationship to God and to channel differently and to receive at a higher capacity, to be in service, and then to walk away going like, holy shit, I got me talking to some gods before coming home from India. Oh, like even had a massive moment, which I'll share for another episode, of when I went to Radhakund, which has got a beautiful story, and felt Krishna and Radharani, his number one gopis, love come over me so deeply. And I don't want to give too much away because I want to share that story in a podcast coming up. But grateful to be back. Grateful to raise the bar on talking about intuition, spiritual guides, other dimensions, how we can utilize our gifts in ways that empower and impact and change the lives of people, of the earth, of leadership, of our children. It's going to be a whole new year of epic transformational podcasts, and I'm so grateful to be on this journey with you all.